Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the HootBoard Visitor Information and Destination Marketing Podcast. I am Brian Reynolds, and with me is Satya Shahade. Satya, how are you?
Doing great, Brian. How are you, man?
Also well. I'm very excited. You know why? Because we have a very exciting guest with us today. He's also a podcaster. Now, let me just get into the. Yeah, I know. Let me just give you. I'm going to get into the bio right now. His name's Adam Stoker. Now, Adam Stoker is the host of the Destination Marketing Podcast. Now, this podcast helps people dive deep into destination marketing strategies while staying up to date on trends. Adam is also the author of Touchpoints, a destination marketer's guide to brand evaluation and enhancements, and also listed on the 40 Under 40 from Utah Business in Utah Valley Business Magazine. Adam Stoker, thank you for being here.
I'm excited to be here, and I appreciate you guys having me on your show. You guys have a great show, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And likewise, it's fun. It's been a lot of fun talking to people in the tourism and destination marketing industry. And one thing I do find consistently is everyone has a fun attitude, and it's destination is tourism, vacation kind of talk. So, it's a very exciting thing to talk about. So I'm really enjoying
it. It's almost a requirement for the job to have fun. It's like you cannot be in destination marketing and events organization unless you're having fun. What say, Adam?
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that I found interesting when I discovered this industry is that it's kind of a hard industry to find. The layman doesn't necessarily know that destination marketing organizations and convention and visitors bureaus even exist. You're kind of ignorant to it, but then once you find it, you never want to leave because it's such a fun and amazing industry to be a part of.
It's funny you say that because that totally happened to us. We all see destination ads all the time, and it's just so part of your life that you just ignore it, and then you realize, well, wait a minute, there's real people behind these ads. There's real people going in and thinking about what's the good that they want to put out there about their community, their city. And it's amazing that this industry exists. And we were very happy ourselves to find about them because, our product can be used in multiple industries. We have had success elsewhere. And then we were like, okay, wait a minute, these people are just different. Like, it's just fun. They are automatic friends first, and then business contacts later, right? And that's just a breath of fresh air, especially from where I came from. But without going into much into that, we'll talk more about you today.
Oh, I've been trying to convince Satya to let me go to like a convention with all the destination marketers, so I can so I'm sure it's gonna be a lot of fun. Or CVB people.
You're gonna go. Yeah.
I want to do the karaoke night with them.
Yeah, you got to let him out. I mean, like you say, it's a great industry, and some of the relationships that I created early on when I just entered the industry, still some of my closest friends today. And not I did car dealership advertising at one point in my career, and let's just say I don't have any ongoing relationships from that part of my career.
I would totally imagine that. I have little history about me that people don't know. I used to be a car salesman early on in my life, but I can't imagine staying friends with the car dealer dealership. Maybe the marketing person there for one reason or the other, but this industry is just different in the level of networking it can do, and they can keep up with, which is awesome. How long? So talking about you coming into the industry, tell us a little bit in terms of how you came here, like what, from car dealership advertising or some point before that?
Yeah. So I've been doing marketing since 2000, or boy, I'm gonna have to remember the year. Anyway, for 15 years, right? And I uncovered destination marketing in 2011. I had just started with a small advertising agency in a small town called St. George, Utah. And my job was to do sales, manage some existing accounts. And then as I brought business in the door, I was supposed to kind of help build and grow the business from there. And we did. We brought in lots of interesting clients. I actually started with Cedar City Bryan Head Convention and Visitors Bureau. Eagle Point Resort was another one that was a really cool client that we brought on. That's a ski resort. And then referral after referral after referral. Next thing you know, it's a giant portion of our business, right? And so we just kind of organically grew from there. But yeah, it all started back in 2011 when I kind of uncovered the first DMO. And I actually found that DMO by just walking in and saying, hey, you guys need some help with your marketing?
Oh, that's awesome.
And they said, yeah, we actually do. And that was kind of the start for us.
Sure enough. It's funny how there's like people that are, these people are just marketing organizations, and to the general public, again, it's just not a realization that somebody has to do that work for all the benefits, all the major events that coming to the town. Hopefully they'll start coming back soon. But there's real people doing that, and it's funny. And another thing I just kind of noticed in what you said, you always remember your first client, don't you? In the industry.
Oh yeah. Oh well, you know, they've always got a special place in your heart, you know, because they opened your eyes to this amazing industry. And you know, Maria Twitchell is the name of the person who introduced me to the industry years ago, and you know, she's a very important part of even my career. And so yeah, really special person. And you always remember that first person that got you in.
That's awesome.
And you've been in the game for a while now, and you host a podcast, the Destination Marketing Podcast, and you've interviewed. Do you know what? I'm putting you on the spot here. Do you know what episode you're on, or how many you put together so far?
So I think the one I just released was episode 143. So we started in May of 2019.
Wow,
awesome.
You've been working at it. That's great. 143. So you've interviewed a lot of people, or you've talked a lot, and you've learned and studied, and it's been career and everything. You've really done a deep dive into this topic, and I just want to know, like, in terms of like destination marketing strategies, or is there anything you can point to that's been particularly effective, clever, interesting, or that kind of get into that a little bit, or share some insight there?
Yeah, you know, I've had the opportunity to talk to so many different destinations, you know, 143 episodes, and at least 110 of those were destinations that we were talking to. And there's a lot of different strategies that have been tried out there, and there's a lot of innovation that's happened in this industry. I think this industry was a little bit slower to make the transition from some of the traditional tactics that were a little outdated into some of the more digital tactics. Then there's the natural challenges that come along with attribution in marketing, where, you know, the destination runs the campaigns and the hotel collects the revenue, and that data bridge isn't connected in a lot of cases. There's been some great innovations, innovative products that are starting to connect those dots, which is really cool. But as far as strategies that I've seen be really effective, I think authenticity is really important, and I talk about it a lot in my book. But there's some destinations that they have a certain perception about them, and some of them will take it as a negative and they'll try to avoid it. And then there's those that will actually lean into it. And the one that comes to mind right now that I'll call out, I had John Ricks, who was I don't know if he's still there, but the president and CEO of Visit Nebraska. And Nebraska launched a campaign a couple of years ago called Nebraska, It's Not for Everyone. Correct. And what they did with that is they took some of the things that people perceive to be negative about Nebraska, and they actually built a campaign around it. I'll never forget, he said one of the pieces of copy from his campaign was, "We have found that only boring people get bored." And I like it. And I thought that was such a brilliant piece of copy to describe that while Nebraska might not be for everyone, that might be a you problem, not a Nebraska problem. He talked about, they have these big cow, I can't remember what they're called, tanks, where the cows will lean over and drink out of these tanks. And man, I can't believe I can't remember what it's called. But they actually created this thing in Nebraska where they will put a bunch of people in these giant tanks and they'll float down the river, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called. But that is something that they feature, and they say, look, it's not for everybody, but man, this is a unique thing that we have to offer that nobody else does. And I just think that's so smart.
I remember you talking, I remember here listening to this episode, and I was like, that is amazing to take something that is people would think of Nebraska as boring, or there's nothing there, or there's no nightlife or whatever. Well, that's your problem, right? We are who we are, and digging into that, taking that out there, that just makes sense. If you don't mind, it reminds me of Brian G. Cunha's episode as well, from on our end with some North Orlando, do Orlando North. He's a good podcast guest, by the way. But shout out to Guy, and it was the exact same thing we talked about there. It's authenticity in terms of what they do, in terms of their marketing, just bringing out those weird things that your destination is about. That's how you stand out. That's how you help people remember, and that's how you take it to the next level, right? Tell us more examples if you have any, Adam. Don't want to put you on spot, but just jump in with anything you have. We have all the time.
It's one of my favorite topics, and so I might take advantage of that too much, and you'll have to tell me to stop. But it's funny you mentioned Guy, because I was introduced to Guy about a week and a half ago, and we're recording his episode of my show next week. And so
that's awesome.
Yeah, you're gonna love Guy.
He's a great guy. Yeah. Another one that comes to mind, and it's one from a couple of years ago, and I'm actually a little bit perplexed that they moved on from it, because it was such a brilliant campaign. And if you listen to my show, you've probably heard me talk about this one too. But I feel like in the destination world, so many people get caught up in features and forget about benefits. And so it's like, we've got hiking, biking, fishing, trails, and it's great. That's wonderful, right? But so does every other destination. And so if you're going to run a campaign about your destination, what you have to focus on is the benefits. And the state of Idaho had a really, really cool campaign a couple of years ago. It's one of the few videos that are advertising videos that I've ever watched that actually made me emotional as I watched it. Now, if it's a Disney movie, I'll cry all day, but advertising rarely brings me to tears, right? But the campaign was, and I'm sure by now you know which one I'm talking about, it was the Idaho 18 Summers campaign. And it said, you have 18 summers with your kids, and then they're gone. Correct. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to be a better dad. I've been wasting my time with my kids. And I had Matt Baroud from the state of Idaho on my podcast. And as Matt was talking about that campaign, he said, listen, we understand that some people may use one of those 18 summers in other destinations. They might go away from Idaho. But what we're betting on is that as the bearers of the message, they're more likely to choose us. And their product backs it up. They've got an incredible product for family travel. And I thought that was such an authentic campaign for the state of Idaho. So much so that I leave tomorrow to go on a vacation with my family to the state of Idaho.
They got you.
How about that?
They got me. They did.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know you have talking about Idaho. I know you have interviewed in the past Carrie Westergrad from Visit Boise, but I agree with you. I mean, talking about outdoors, that region in the country around. I mean, we have a lot of good regions, obviously, but getting your kids out there, and I must say, I was having goosebumps as you were saying that, because I just had that realization myself, right? It's like, hey, you don't have a lot of time with your kids somehow. They grow up quickly, and you just have to kind of make use of it. And boiling that down into a campaign, into a statement, that's where the greatness lies in marketing, right?
Yep.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I want to bring up one more example, if that's okay.
For sure.
Totally. It's all yours. Sorry, my Slack is like going off here, so I just need to turn it off. I forgot to turn it off. For people who are on Slack, turn off the Slack before the podcast.
That very identifiable sound, that Slack noise.
Yeah.
Yes, let's turn off Slack.
Yeah.
Especially now.
Yeah, go ahead.
The example that I wanted to give you is actually from a campaign that we had the opportunity to work on with Bryce Canyon. It's actually Garfield County, Utah, but no one recognizes that name because we've branded it as Bryce Canyon Country. And as we were working on their COVID recovery campaign, we really wanted to put a message out there that was authentic to them, but also encouraged people to get out and travel. And we came up with the campaign called Upgrade Your Dust. And the idea was your stuff that you used to use when you'd go camp and travel and everything, it was gathering dust in your garage for the last year. So how about we upgrade that dust and go get your stuff dirty with some fresh dust again in Bryce Canyon Country. And that's been a very, very successful recovery campaign for Garfield County.
It's a good hook. And I feel dusty myself in some ways. It's time to get out there, right? Though I did manage to sneak in a couple of trips, and I'm sure, Brian, you're trying to get out there as well.
Yeah, Bryce Canyon, love Bryce. Yeah, I've been there once before. It's a beautiful country. And one of the things I do think I like, Adam, is the campaigns that you can taste and see and smell. And they said upgrade your dust. Immediately took the scent, like what the dust kind of smells like if you're hiking versus the dust that's in your garage, right? So it kind of like it invokes that emotion, or that sensibility, I should say. Great.
Quickly. Talking about COVID-19, since you brought that up, it's your fault, Adam.
Here we are again.
COVID. Stay away from it. But talking about COVID-19 and the whole pandemic, what are you seeing now? What are you seeing with your partners you're talking to right now? How is the state of the union, if you will, in the tourism industry, and how are they changing things, and how are you guys changing things as things progress?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me this, because every destination is in a different place, and it's if you're still going with the status quo, I promise you're missing, right? We believe that marketing is getting the right message to the right people at the right time, and it's that simple. But there's a whole lot that goes into making sure that you hit all those on the nose. And so as we look at COVID and how it's affecting each destination, I'm seeing that rural destinations are experiencing record-breaking traffic. And so the campaigns that small destinations are required to run now, it's not please come, it's a distribution campaign. It's once you get here, go somewhere else so that we're not shoulder to shoulder. And I'm going to use Bryce Canyon again as an example. Bryce Canyon National Park is at the center of Garfield County, but some of the most amazing experiences that you can have are around Bryce Canyon, but not in Bryce Canyon. But 90% of the people go to Bryce Canyon. My family and I, a month ago, went down to the area, and we actually hiked a slot canyon that's outside of Bryce Canyon. It's called Willis Creek. And it was an incredible hike. I mean, we had a fantastic time, but 90% of the people never even make it there because it's not in Bryce Canyon. So what you have is these rural destinations are dealing with a distribution issue. And then you've got these urban destinations who built their business around conventions and major urban events and things like that. They're really struggling still. And what they're finding is that they've got to come up with new leisure travel messages that they really haven't had to come up with for years and years, right? And so, what I'm recommending to everybody that I talk to is that you have to somewhat, and within what you're able to do, you need to throw everything you've done in the past out the window and stop saying, well, we've always done it this way, so this is how we're going to do it. And you need to re-examine everything. your audience has changed. Restaurants that were a key part of your customer experience have gone out of business. So your customer experience has changed.
Yeah.
So much has changed in the destination marketing industry and in every destination, especially urban destinations. It's time to redo your strategy from top to bottom, re-examine your audiences, make sure that you're getting the right message to the right people, and that the right people might be different people than they were before, and the right time might be different, because let's say you were targeting retirees during the school year because they were willing to come. Well, maybe now, because they're a little bit more hesitant to travel because of the way COVID affects the elderly, you might have to figure out how to get families to your destination on the weekends, when in the past they weren't even a factor, right? And so there's so much that's changed. I just think destinations have got to reevaluate every component of their marketing plan.
I'm glad I asked the question, because as you said it, I'm like, wait a minute, we are seeing that exact challenge. Part of it, our product comes into picture is small destinations are getting so much traffic that they're now saying, okay, we have visitors coming in that the volumes that we have never dealt with before. In some ways, how are we going to guide them? How are we going to get up-to-date information to them? Because a lot of them don't have running visitor centers, so they cannot guide them around. And people are doing much more of those 2-3 hour drives, because they still, depending on what level of hesitancy they have in terms of flying, all these smaller destinations are getting just too much traffic, which is great for them if they can handle it right. Otherwise, it's going to spread bad word, and both for them and for larger destinations, it's just a completely new slate that they need to work with. It seems like.
Yeah. Do you mind if I push back on you just a little bit there? Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I do believe, and I agree with you, that in a lot of rural destinations, over tourism is a problem. But I also think we're dealing with a little bit of a laziness problem in some rural destinations, where they are, instead of doing the work that it's going to take to build the distribution campaign, a traffic distribution plan, they're going to say, well, over tourism is the problem and we need to ratchet it back. So I just think there are some where over tourism is the case, and we do need to pull back on tourism. But I would argue that in most destinations that are dealing with over tourism, they need to do a better job of guiding the visitors to a more complete experience, and not have 90% of the traffic on 10% of the product.
Exactly. And that's always the case. Is there's the internet has a lot of easy content, right? It's 5 top places to visit in plugin XYZ, right? And that's what is driving by. The destinations are sitting back and taking that traffic and then complaining, hey, we cannot handle this, when there's like 5 other gems that just are not found. And a lot of times, to your point, I completely agree. And the way you put it, you did a great justice to it, is the destinations know this. The destinations and the people, they are the experts in their places. They know exactly what's good, what's unique, where they would themselves go to, and they're not opening that up or putting that out there. So, so I absolutely see this is such a huge opportunity now. Yes, just a few months back, we were talking about how bad the situation was, but now it's really, money knocking at the doors is how you take advantage of that with your destination, and for the businesses of your destination. So
Adam, is it okay? I'd like to actually talk about your book, if that's okay. I think this would be a good opportunity to get into that, because it kind of works together with kind of the guidebook you put together here. But so in your book, it's called Touchpoints, a destination marketer's guide to brand evaluation and enhancement. It says the founding thesis for the book is that a brand is the sum of all the touch points an organization has with the outside world. And, we're talking a lot about examples of destinations right now. And I just kind of, maybe if you could maybe talk a little bit about the brand evaluation and enhancement process, and maybe expand on what you mean by the sum of all touch points. And feel free to use live examples too, or previous examples.
We love live.
Absolutely.
Lives too.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to. So my book, what made me decide to write the book is that I had so much content that I had generated for the show from the podcast, and that I felt like I had interviewed some of the smartest people in the industry. And I realized that I felt like from what we had gathered, we had enough to give you a comprehensive view of how to create an effective brand for your destination. And so I curated a lot of those interviews along with a lot of my personal opinions and thoughts and philosophies, and put it into a very usable guide of how to examine your brand and enhance it. In fact, at the end of each section of my book, there's actually a worksheet. It's a very simple worksheet, but it's centered around action and making sure that you don't just read the book, oh, that's great information, and put it on the shelf. There's an action plan associated with each step in the book. And what I mean by touch points is when I say your brand is the sum of all the touch points your organization has with the outside world, that's anywhere where someone interacts with your brand. So for example, you place an ad, and this is an easy one because in advertising, we know that we place an ad, people see it, that affects our brand. What sometimes is a little bit more challenging to recognize is that as I'm sitting down to eat dinner in a restaurant in your destination, and I interact with the waiter, that's a touch point with your brand. And I won't say what destination it was, but I had to travel for a conference to a destination recently. And I asked the woman at the front desk, I said, hey, where do I have to eat that's unique to this destination? And she looked at me and she said, well, all we have is chains here. And I actually ended up chatting with the DMO, and they said, I can't believe she said that. We have so many unique restaurants here. And but that's a touch point, right? And so I believe there's two types of touch points. One is the controllable touch points that you have, and that's the interactions that you control. So an ad, as you run PR and an article gets written about you, or a social media post, or someone calls into the DMO to ask questions about their trip, all of those are controllable, right? Your wayfinding signage within your destination, talking about traffic distribution like we were earlier, that's a touch point. The non-controllable touch points are when someone comes to your destination and goes back home and talks about your destination to someone else. It's no longer controllable. Every opportunity you had to control that already happened, and now it's under their control, but it's part of your brand. So if you did a good job, that's a good touch point and it enhances your brand. If you did a poor job with your touch points, it takes away from your brand and it cheapens your brand. And that's why every touch point, whether it's customer experience or advertising or your website or everything in between, it all has to work together and jive well, so that as someone is talking about your destination, by the time they've experienced your destination, they should be able to tell an effective story. If your brand's all over the place, it's going to be difficult for them to articulate the story. And so my book is to help people examine all of those touch points and create an action plan to improve and enhance your brand.
And that is amazing that you are putting it that way. And the touch points, you're defining the touch points in a way that they are so broad. I have an example on that front. I was talking to, I forget the name, from Visit Syracuse, and we were talking about Destinations International a couple of years back in St. Louis, I think. And he's a big guy, Mike, I believe, big guy in St. Louis, staying in a hotel, wanting to find a restaurant, put in Google Maps, and then Google Maps took them around like a few blocks, and all of a sudden he lands into an area where he was scared for his life. It's maybe partly to, you know, his jumpiness, but partly also, hey, can we have updated information, right? Can we just not have people stray into it? It's not, you know, every city, it's not about St. Louis, it's not about, you know, particular city. Every area is going to have something good, something bad, something boring, something exciting. You want to manage, you want to control that messaging and get that. We always talk to our clients about the leaky bucket syndrome. You are spending, in some cases, millions of dollars, and you don't want to bring them in and then have a leaky bucket where they're just plain losing you with your messaging and not seeing what you advertise them in the first place, right? Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, another example that I share in my book, and I think you guys really help with this. You help with the in-destination experience.
Exactly. We are all about in-destination. Yep.
I think it's so critical. One of the things that I talk about in the book is I was in Knoxville, Tennessee for a football game. It was amazing. My team won. It was a fantastic experience. But Knoxville blew me away. And if you've never been to Knoxville, there's a beautiful square downtown where there's restaurants all around the square. There's live music in the middle of the square. And on game day, it's unreal. Yeah. And we were there at a restaurant called Stock and Barrel. And we had eaten these really unique burgers. Mine had blueberry jam on it. It was very unique. Yeah. And at the end of the meal, I looked at the waiter and I said, "Hey, we'd love to see your dessert menu." And he looked at us and he said, "You know what? We've got great desserts. But if you really want to experience Knoxville, if you want it to be a unique experience, you need to go around the corner to Cruz Family Farms, and their ice cream is the best." And I couldn't believe that somebody would say, don't try our desserts. They might be good. If you want the real experience, go around the corner. And I have talked about that experience so much because that was an incredible touch point, right, that we had in Knoxville. And by the way, Cruz Family Farms, worth it. Totally right. Yeah. The ice cream was amazing. So that was a really, like, once again, going back to touch points, they really knew how to spread their brand around and make sure that everyone understood what they're trying to convey. Hospitality was their brand.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have something to do with it, you know, in terms of their clients, but they are our clients. I've been to Knoxville. Shout out, by the way, hashtag knoxrocks. That's what they go by. So very cool destination. Everyone should check it out. But they have an active program to train, you know, ambassadors across the city to be able to kind of share that. If I remember, if my memory serves us right, you know, they do have that program, and we have interviewed someone from Knoxville previously to be able to, you know, who manages this, right? So it's a very important skill to be able to get your community in almost your community, and that as we do that destination or visitor information in such a way, and the community be trained that they can talk about it on their own and basically propagate the message further down.
Yeah, Knoxville's not my client, but I sure wish they were, so I could take some credit for what they're doing. They do a wonderful job, and I really respect what they're doing in their organization.
Yeah, Kim and her team are a very tight shop. They are awesome to work with. I would definitely hope that you and them cross paths at some point. So, yeah.
One thing I like about doing this job, one thing I like about this, running a podcast like this, and just popped in my mind, we always talk about these amazing destinations and all these great places to go to and how much fun and how interesting they are. And like, I think I'm going to have to like take all of our episodes and just like visit every single place that we've interviewed. And like, maybe my retirement years, or no, maybe that's too long to wait. I got to do it sooner. Right. And like every vacation I take, I'm gonna have to go visit one of these destinations.
I don't want to lose track of the book though. Is it out? When is it? If not, when is it coming out, and where can people order? Let's make sure we get that information out there.
Yep, it's been out for about a year and a half. I'm working on a second edition right now. Some of the technology that I mentioned has changed. Some of the technology that I've omitted needs to be added. And so I'm working on a second edition. Not sure when that's going to get out because it's been a crazy busy year so far this year, but I'm working on it. It's available on Amazon. You can either order the physical book or you can order the ebook. I think the physical book's $15.99 and the ebook I think is $5. So it's got great reviews. I've gotten great feedback from some of the destinations that have gone through it. Really proud of it because it was something my dad's an author and it always just seemed really overwhelming to me to do something like that. And so it's something I'm really proud of. And while I think it turned out great, I also really think it needs a second edition. But the hardest thing to do is look back at your own work and admire it. I'd much rather admire other people's work.
No, it is a good achievement, and I'm definitely adding it to my reading list because I have not read that, and that probably would give us enough incentive to call you back and then really dig deeper. But the concept of touch points, people talk about it, people try to preach it. It's much harder done than said, or much easier said than done, depending on how you position it. But I think going through that, walking the road, investing time and energy, I think that's true for any business, and I'm sure it's more than true for destinations.
Real quick, let me just add one thing onto that, if that's okay. And that's totally. My book is a great do-it-yourself tool. Like, I give you the tools to do it yourself, but I think it's a little overwhelming for a lot of people. Like you said, it's easier said than done. So we are actually rolling out a service where we will do the entire process for you from the destination analysis to the touch point analysis, all the way through to the improvement. And we're rolling that out literally in the next week or so. So more to come on that, but we're going to try to make it even more functional, where instead of you having to shoulder that entire responsibility, we'll guide you through the entire way.
And that was you answered my next question, because I was going to say it cannot be easy, right? You need a coach. Almost everyone needs a coach, especially when you are talking about self-improvement, whether it's as an organization or a person. You need a coach through that, and somebody external looking at you, guiding through it. And I'm glad you said that. And it's we are all about good plugs, and I think you deserve to kind of get that word out there, that because people and our DMOs need this help. Other thing we have talked about with Todd from Schenectady is just the concept of destination marketing and management organizations. That management piece of your destination is such a under discussed topic. I know there's a lot of people talking about that right now, but I think a lot of destinations are structured around there's hard limits on what they can do in terms of their budgets, right? They need to spend so much percentage of their dollars into marketing, which means the word management gets kind of under appreciated. The problem is that is exactly what leads to that leaky bucket. If you're not managing your destination, you're not managing that communications, you're not working with your community partners to build aspects of your destination out, that's when you're talking about things like people walking into areas that they do not need to, or just restaurant servers not giving the right information for that matter, right?
Yeah, this is where, I'm a strong believer in the idea that a crisis, while painful in the moment, in a lot of cases can be turned into a good thing. And I think that the management portion of a DMO was really brought to light when COVID hit. I saw DMOs jump into action, leveraging and providing content to their stakeholders, organizing. I saw everything from like virtual wine tours to people actually going out and helping hand out food for their dining establishments that were understaffed, but were trying to get the food out the door. I mean, there was so much that I saw on the management side over the last year.
Correct.
I do feel like one of the positives that's going to come out of COVID for the industry is that every destination had to step up their management side of things. And I think that trend, it's almost like the stakeholders that, because tourism was at a 10-year high right before COVID hit, it's almost like we didn't need to engage our stakeholders because we're providing them so much business. They should just not ask questions and just enjoy it, right? Just absolutely. Accept the business and be happy. And I think the stakeholder engagement portion of destination management that I've seen over the last year is a trend that in my mind is going to continue for a very long time, because it was a great wake-up call because we need it again. And we realized how much we need those stakeholders.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's and we did hear a lot of stories like that as well, where the DMOs are getting out there, doing things for restaurants, and engaging tremendously with their local chamber or the business improvement districts, taking the time to even work on the facade, like how the city looks, right? It's a lot of good investments that went into that, which is awesome. And kudos to all the destinations who did that, instead of saying, hey, we have been hit with this painful thing and now we are gonna do nothing, right? So
the trick is to not revert back to the way things were before. Take the good things that came out of COVID and make them permanent. Adjust your processes to make those permanent, and don't fall back into the way you were.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I want to talk a little bit. This kind of dovetails nicely into this next question. We do have a few minutes left, and I wanted to dig into this. You did use the T word trend, and I wanted to. You mentioned one trend. I was wondering if you can maybe expand a little bit. You have 15 years of experience in the tourism marketing industry and destination marketing. And I just want to know if you can talk about any newer trends you're seeing and the destinations that are embracing, and just maybe talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, I think one of the trends that I'm seeing, and it's kind of funny to talk about it on a podcast, but I think in 2-3 years, every single destination is going to have a podcast of its own, because I'm really passionate about this format. We've created a podcast network called the Destination Marketing Podcast Network, where we're producing podcasts for destinations, and the initial results are fantastic. And the reason for that is because podcasts allows someone to consume content in a passive way. You can listen to this, you can learn while you're doing dishes, while you're folding laundry, you're at the gym, you're driving in your car. So you can multitask, and time has become the most valuable commodity that anyone has. And to do just one thing at a time is becoming less and less exciting for anyone. So if you think about how destinations have marketed historically, they all market to their website. And if you're going to consume content on a website, you are sitting down, looking at either your phone screen or your computer screen, and you're required to read every word on the page if you want to really digest that content. That goes for also social media content, for long form content. But with podcast content, people can consume it passively. And that's why podcasts, 55% of Americans have listened to a podcast in the last year, and the reason that number is so high is because of that multitasking ability. And so I see the trend of destinations creating podcasts that allow people to use a passive format to plan their trip. And then the unintended consequence of it is the stakeholder engagement as you feature different places within your destination. This trend of podcasts will continue, and I'm very confident every destination will have one in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and we definitely see. In fact, Guy, who we talked about earlier, he has a very good podcast of his own for the Orlando North and their county, Seminole County. But the beauty of it is you're talking to the stakeholders, you are engaging them, and they are talking directly to the customer, in this case the visitor, but a lot of times the customer could be your citizen too, right? In a lot of ways, this is a great way for the DMOs to engage their own community beyond what they're traditionally, again, looking at. And that's very important, because it goes back to our previous discussion, is how are you gonna get every citizen talk about your destination and have those touch points? So it's all a full circle, right? At that point, it's a full circle.
Well, absolutely. And you know what else it is? We talked about over tourism earlier, right?
Yeah.
It's a great distribution tool. You have 30 minutes in a podcast to tell people all the things that are not Bryce Canyon to do in the destination, right? And so I don't know if you guys saw, but this in the last couple of days, Zion National Park received a ton of rain and ended up having lots of flash floods. People were stranded, roads were broken. And it's like, if a podcast could have helped more people be in different areas of the county, you know, not so many people might have been stranded at that time or whatever. I really believe that there's, like you said, stakeholder engagement, distribution of traffic, helping people plan their trips. Laredo, Texas has a podcast called the Hola Laredo podcast. And the main feedback that I've gotten from Eileen Ramos, the CEO there at Laredo, she said that so many of her stakeholders and locals are consuming this podcast. And that's been the big surprise for her, is that locals really want to know what the tourists get to be told, you Absolutely. And they want to know what's going on.
Yeah. And the flip side of it is, the tourists do want to engage with locals. They do want to be able to go out and act like a local. In fact, they want to know what's not unique, or unique in the sense, not the mainstream for this location, right? Like or that destination. And being able to point that out, no matter what medium they use, we would obviously plug in our own product on that, but podcasts, kiosks, if you will, you want to do mobile apps, email campaigns, talk about not just the 5 top, but the other 50, and help your visitors pick the interesting things for them, their families, their own nuance, or if you will, in terms of what interests them, right? And I'm sure most destinations have to offer a lot to other than what just appeals to the top 5.
Yep, expose them to more touch points.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Oh, came back around to the other touch points. That's great. Yeah. Hey, I love it. Okay, so we are 7 minutes away. Thank you again, Adam. There's 2 more questions I have for you. These are quick hit answers here. I want to be respectful of your time, since we locked you in for the hours. So, what is an action item destinations can start today that will enhance their brand?
Re-examine your audience. Remember, it's getting the right message to the right people at the right time. Double check the audience that you've decided that you're going to target, and verify that your Google Analytics data still matches that, right? That those people are still the ones demonstrating the most interest. Verify that you're getting the right message to the right people. And that is the first thing that I would do today if you haven't done it since COVID.
That's awesome. Thank you very much for that. And one more, I'm gonna fire one more at you. Here we go.
Let's do it.
What are some resources that destination marketers or travel destinations are not taking full advantage of, and they should be?
The biggest issue that I see, other than podcasts, because I talked about that earlier, but the biggest issue that I'm seeing with destinations not taking advantage of is you spent all this money to get people to your destination, and you're completely ignoring the traveler once they get there. Every destination should take a portion of their budget and dedicate that budget to in-destination marketing. And if you'll do that, you're going to remember, we talked about the distribution problem. You're going to solve some of the distribution problems, but you're also going to improve that customer experience once they're there. You make sure they choose the dining establishments that are going to be most likely to result in a good experience. And dining is one example, but you kind of get my point. I believe that a healthy portion of every destination's marketing budget should be spent in destination.
And never ever tell anyone how much we paid you to say that, right?
You know what? It's funny because I knew you'd like that, but it's true. It really is true. It's the biggest thing that's getting neglected right now in destination marketing.
Yeah, it's we feel so sad when we talk to destinations, that especially when they say, hey, we have to put money to marketing and that's how our budget works. But no, this is marketing. Once you get in, you invest in that visitor. A bird in a hand is worth two in the bush. Once they get in, make sure you invest in them, and they're going to talk about it forever. They are going to talk about it, like a simple example like that ice cream story you just told us. They are going to talk about it. You just have to kind of invest in it.
Yeah, it only makes sense if you're going to look at your destination holistically and look at all of the touch points that you have. And if you look at all the touch points and then you don't do anything for the in-destination experience, you're neglecting half your touch points. Marketing isn't just paid marketing, right? Your brand is so much more than that. A brand is so much more than just a logo. And I really feel like in-destination marketing is the thing that's being neglected. I know that's going to help you guys, but that's not why I said it.
No, I agree, and we obviously agree. But I'm glad you say that, and I'm glad there are champions for this, because I don't think, and we see people all the time who are not understanding how important this is. Is just, hey, the visitors coming in, you already spent the money to get them there. Might as well knock it out of the park and then move on to the next one. Otherwise you're just wasting your money. So I think that's a really good segue for Brian to take over.
Adam, one more time. Do you have any links, Twitter's handles, anything you want to shout out right now before we close it up?
Yeah, so I would just say that find me on LinkedIn if you want to connect. That's just Adam Stoker on LinkedIn. You'll see me pop up there. And wherever you consume your podcast, after you've already listened to the HootBoard episode, make sure that you add the Destination Marketing Podcast to your queue.
And make sure you leave a 5-star review of Adam Stoker's podcast as well, and write a nice comment in Apple's reviews and all the and everywhere you can review the podcast. So, all right. Adam, if there's not anything else, Adam Stoker is the president and CEO of Relic and the host of the Destination Marketing Podcast. Also the author of Touchpoints, a destination marketer's guide to brand evaluation and enhancement. And once again, the 40 under 40 of the Utah Business, Utah Valley Business Magazine. Adam, thank you for being here and have a great vacation.
Thanks, guys. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for watching this clip of the HootBoard Visitor Information and Destination Marketing Podcast. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing to the podcast. You can find us on all the popular platforms for podcasts like Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google. And while you're there, please consider leaving us a 5-star review and a nice comment. You can also find us on YouTube, so please subscribe to us there. You'll find consistently updated content with the latest interviews, tips, tricks, ideas, anything that's relevant to the visitor information and destination marketing industry. Thank you for listening.